They promised, they delivered. Putin's puppets have once again raised the value-added tax, which has predictably sent consumer prices skyrocketing. Naturally, many Russians are quite shocked by this. Ordinary consumers can no longer afford even the basics. Small businesses are on the verge of shutting down. A new economic crisis, even worse than those of '98 and 2008, is already at the doorstep of every Russian home. Here it comes.
The New Year holidays are over, and many Russians have sobered up to the unprecedented rise in prices.
Well, friends, let's start the new year 2026. With what?
That's right, sugar.
So my husband went to the store. How much do you think all of this cost? 3,000... Three grand?
Have you even seen this? In the region, they even hide chocolate. All sorts of cases like that. Because the prices have just shot up to the sky. It's already 139 rubles. People are being forced to steal.
Ordinary Russians are trying to get used to the new prices because of the VAT increase from 20 to 22%. The Russian authorities promised that this increase wouldn't affect prices at all. But in reality, the exact opposite happened.
I was just out shopping for work, and honestly, I was just shocked by the prices. Just before the New Year holiday, it cost 250 to 300 rubles, but now the price is over 500.
Official data from Rosstat shows that in the first half of January, prices rose by just under 1%. In reality, that figure is much higher.
The economy has responded to the set of measures aimed at squeezing money out of the population. And from business, the reaction is radical. I think that by the end of January, official inflation will already be over 2%, which means unofficially it is 4 or 5%. This is just the beginning. One price increase triggers another. For example, if milk becomes more expensive, then cheese, butter, and so on will also go up in price. To put it another way, nearly every single thing is getting more expensive down the line. Furthermore, public transportation fares have increased quite dramatically, as have a wide variety of other essential goods that have a significant impact on the overall structure of consumer spending. For example, gasoline and diesel have become much more expensive. Overall, this was certainly an unpleasant surprise for the government.
At the end of September last year, Russia's finance minister Silvanov explained the VAT increase as a measure to fight inflation. But after the new VAT was introduced, he stated outright that all Russians must pay for the war in Ukraine.
We need a significant increase in investment on defense and security. Today, this is our country's main priority. And to ensure we provide the necessary resources, yes, we are also implementing changes to the value-added tax.
Businesses in Russia have started canceling salary indexations and cutting employee bonuses, even without any deterioration in financial performance. At company meetings at the end of the year, when summing up the results of 2025, employees in many companies were told that in 2026 they would have to tighten their belts. The main reasons are increased tax burdens, inflation, and a lack of reserves. There can be no talk at all of any salary increases.
Alexei Chakachov, managing partner of the HR agency A2AM, spoke about such a case at a factory with 2,000 employees in the Central Federal District. According to him, at the end of the year, the owners of the enterprise announced a freeze on salary indexation due to expensive loans and a spike in prices, even though the company broke its record for production volume and increased its revenue. According to Chikachov, the model of tactical poverty is also used by one of the retail service chains to pay employees of the Moscow Times less.
A single VAT should not have such a significant effect. But if we assess the overall impact of all the new measures the government introduced at the beginning of the year, I believe it deserves a separate and thorough study. In my opinion, there has never been anything like this all at once in Russian history. A one-time tax increase, changes to the tax collection system, plus factors related to the budget deficit. Everything hit all at once. For
example, Moscow is currently experiencing the largest wave of restaurant and bar closures. In just the first half of January, 45 popular establishments closed down.
According to experts, at least 465 establishments in the capital will shut down this year. Moreover, since the end of 2025, market presence has been optimized. Shokoladnitsa has closed down about 20 locations, Rostix is down by 25 restaurants, Yekaterinburg has lost 8, and so on.
The main reason is the drop in demand. For many Russians, going out to a restaurant has become a significant luxury they can no longer afford. The recent increase in VAT will drive prices up even further.
It'll take 2 or 3 years to make up for those lost years when resources were pulled from the civilian sector. People don't buy tanks or missiles, but that's what's being made. Naturally, prices rise for things not being produced. This year, Russians will feel the war personally as their wallets get lighter.
This year, Russians will feel the war in Ukraine on their own skin, as their wallets will be significantly lighter. All prominent economic experts unanimously call 2026 the year when a massive and significant financial crisis will begin in Russia.
Almost everyone has probably heard about Putin's shadow tanker fleet, but a shadow postal service, that's something new. German journalists have uncovered a scheme for delivering European goods under sanctions to Russia. How does it work? Let us show you now.
Despite strict sanctions, banned goods continue to easily make their way from Germany to Russia. This was reported by Bild. After their extensive months-long investigation, journalists uncovered the existence of a likely parcel smuggling network that was actively functioning in the very heart of Germany. To uncover Putin's shadow mail network, journalists carefully utilized GPS trackers to follow the precise route of parcels sent through a network that was directly associated with former employees of a Russian post subsidiary in Germany. But let's take it step by step. Bild found out that a key role in the scheme is played by a logistics company registered at the end of 2022. Officially, it only has a post office box in Cologne. However, in reality, parcels are brought to a warehouse located near Berlin, from where trucks then head to Russia via Poland and Belarus.
Bild journalists utilized GPS trackers to carefully track the route of parcels that were dispatched via a network connected to former employees of a Russian post subsidiary in Germany. We're talking about hundreds of tons of shipments that are regularly sent to Moscow.
The journalists dispatched 5 test parcels containing completely non-functional sanctioned electronic components, which were declared as entirely harmless household items. The contents of the parcels were listed as books, scarves, and hats. The shipping cost is 26 euros per package, weighing up to 2 kilograms.
Notably, Uzbekistan Post documents were used for shipping the cargo, despite having no official authorization to operate in Germany. The German authorities are already investigating possible violations of the law.
As the journalists discovered, the route of the parcels is always the same: Berlin, Poland, Belarus, Moscow. Packages with hidden tracking devices cross the EU borders near Belarusian Brest almost without any obstacles. Every one of the GPS navigation devices ultimately reported the same result: arrival in Moscow. In response to a request from Bild, the logistics company stated that their control mechanisms are designed in such a way that violating EU sanctions is virtually impossible. However, they added that they are not immune to false declarations. Additionally, Bild's investigation reports that a car belonging to Dmitry Five, the former managing director of Raspost GmbH, is regularly parked near the company's warehouse. Back in 2014, Russian Post gave him the task of establishing a subsidiary in Berlin. And although he officially resigned after the start of the full-scale invasion, Bild's investigation confirms that he is now running this logistics company that regularly transports and ships cargo directly to Russia.
The ongoing existence of various clandestine channels through which restricted and sanctioned goods from the European Union continue to make their way into Russia is certainly not a new revelation to anyone following the situation. Unfortunately, Ukraine regularly receives evidence confirming this after every shelling of its territory, when Ukrainian specialists carefully examine the debris of missiles and drones, and invariably find a significant number of components from the European Union. In other words, despite all the restrictions, as practice shows, the Russians are able to obtain everything they need without much trouble or effort.
President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly stated that the Russian military-industrial complex is critically dependent on the import of foreign components, without which the production of missiles and drones is virtually impossible. According to him, this is not about individual types of weapons, but about the entire system of Russian weapons production, which relies on components that Russia is unable to manufacture on its own.
Russian missiles are manufactured and assembled only because there are complex international schemes designed to bypass sanctions. That is the undeniable truth. Everyone can see how Russia is now trying to drive Ukrainians, our people, into a perilous and freezing death with outdoor temperatures dropping to -20 degrees Celsius. But the Russians would not be able to make a single ballistic or cruise missile without essential high-tech components sourced from other countries. And it's not just China. Russia receives components from companies in Europe, the United States, and the island of Taiwan.
This was during one of his recent speeches at the Davos Forum, where he emphasized that, in fact, sanction mechanisms are being circumvented and Russia is getting everything it needs. And this is a very big problem. Theoretically, the sanctions mechanism was supposed to deprive Russia of the tools to continue the war and thus push it toward ending this very war. But
in reality, things turned out to be completely different. Sanctions against Russia are absolutely not working as they were supposed to.
In reality, Russia continues to trade oil and continues to make money. With this money, it calmly buys everything it needs. In a number of countries that have formally declared sanctions against Russia, this whole system operates in this way. As a result, Russia is able to continue shelling Ukraine, destroying Ukrainian infrastructure, and creating a humanitarian catastrophe in Ukraine. And in fact, this represents the true cost of all this. This is the price of the fact that hardly anyone in Europe is taking serious action regarding sanctions.
Political analyst Petr Leszczuk explains why all this is happening this way. And unfortunately, the reasons for this are obvious.
They do it for one simple reason, because trading with Russia is profitable for many representatives of European business. And that's exactly what they are doing.